Welcome to the Justice in Heels podcast. I'm your host, Daniélle, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for season 2. In this season, we focus on sharing stories and exploring strategies that empower those in the legal field to not just survive, but thrive in their careers. So, whether you're a seasoned lawyer, a fresh graduate navigating the legal landscape, or just someone curious about the world of law, Season 2 of this podcast is your go-to source for inspiration and support. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Justice in Heels podcast. Today, I have somebody that I met on LinkedIn and somebody who is just a game changer in what he does on the podcast. So I want to welcome Tim Wagner. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Fantastic, Daniélle. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here with you. And as I understand, the first male. I have no heels.
Fortunately not, but it's okay. I think our listeners are going to learn so much from you.
It's wonderful to be here. Yeah, any opportunity to talk to business professionals and professionals in any industry with what we're going to share can be truly life-changing and make a huge difference in not only business, but personal life as well.
So, Tim, can you first start by telling our listeners a bit more about yourself? Who are you? What are you doing? What are you passionate about?
Well, I've been around breathing for many, many years, and breath work for stress release came to me just over a year ago. And now I look at my life and I think, if I only knew now what I know now back into the corporate days, how my life could have been different. So I grew up in South Africa, studied in the UK, and I specialized in hospitality for 27 years. And in hospitality, just like in law, the hours are ridiculous. You have this constant pressure. You never stop. Weekends are not time off. That's time when you catch up. So I understand the pressure of those hours, and the hospitality drove me nearly to the point of an absolute burnout. And that happened as I was climbing the corporate ladder. I did the traditional thing. I studied, climbed the corporate ladder, and in the last sort of 5 or 10 years of my career, I wasn't overly passionate about it. I'd lost that passion because it was that constant stress, the long hours, the lack of sleep, the lack of having time to relax and refresh. But back then, I didn't know what to do about it. So when I left that, it's now 2018, April 2018, I walked out of my last job and I said, that's it. This is ridiculous. I'm either going to die, I'm going to kill somebody, or I'm probably going to get divorced because I was estranged from my son, didn't know me, my wife, not the best of relationships, and all because of corporate. I realized that there's got to be more to life. So to fast forward, I've been doing coaching, personal development, and mentoring and speaking for many, many years, aside from my full-time job. So when I was looking at how I could be more impactful into my clients' development and helping them just become better versions of themselves and really grow into what they wanted to become or who they wanted to become, I wanted to find a way I could be, let's say, unique and more impactful. And realizing that over the last 3 years, ever since the whole pandemic, haven't we all become more stressed? The world is just seems to be more chaotic, right?
Definitely. No, I think a lot of people can actually resonate with that. Like for me, for example, like I've started to get so nervous when I need to speak, and it's something that I've never experienced before COVID.
Yes, all these external things came to us, which we never appreciated or expected before that they would come. And so, in fact, overwhelm and burnout in the workplace is now called by the World Health Organization a pandemic. Absolutely, it's huge, which is one big reason why October, in fact, the 10th of October, was World Mental Health Day, to bring to the awareness of people and also businesses the importance of having a look at the total holistic approach to the employees and to us in workplaces, realizing it's not just about teaching about leadership skills or development, but it's more about the mindfulness, more about, can you be calm? Are you able to stay healthy? And so when I was on my journey to find out how I could be more impactful, that's when I realized and I connected stress. We're also stressed. How on earth are we meant to function optimally? Whichever career you're in, we're just not able to. That stress, when you're in that high stress environment for a long time, you're preparing for a case, you've just got clients who they're in difficult situations and you inherit their stress. I could only imagine how much of that would impact you. But you've got to remain calm. You've got to remain centered. You've got to remain in control. But yes, all these external things happen. Then your clients come along. Plus, you've got your own life, your own family, and all that burden that comes with that as well. And that's where I started investigating stress release. And that's where breath work came into my life, that I found out and started to study this very, very intensely to realize that if we learn how to focus on our breathing, what I call a conscious connected breather, you're able to really influence your entire state, be it that you want to calm yourself before you do go into court, or you're meeting a stressed out client. How do you remain calm? Or it's that late afternoon, you've got to prepare these dockets, these paperwork, this presentation, whichever it is, and you need to awaken yourself. You can do all of that through breath. How amazing is that?
And you know what I actually like about breath work? It's something that you can do anywhere. I mean, like, all of us breathe, but like not all of us breathe effectively. And that's also something that I've learned from you. And I remember you shared this amazing post on LinkedIn one time where you mentioned that a lot of people who are mouth breathers are actually the people who get heart attacks and strokes. If I remember correctly, can you just like tell us a bit more about that?
Sure, that's quite a serious one, and really brings it to the fore. There was a study done a few years ago in the States with 178 fatal heart attack victims. And when they studied them, they found out that 100% of them were mouth breathers. You see, what happens when you breathe through your mouth, if you imagine a high stress environment, you're high anxious, you're on the verge of a panic attack. Do you breathe through your mouth or your nose?
Mouth, definitely.
Mouth. Right. Does your blood pressure go up or down?
Probably up.
Right. Does your heart beat faster or slower?
Faster.
Do you breathe from your chest or from your belly? See, when you're in that stressed state, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system, which is breathing from your chest, which is fear, fight, flight. So you're breathing from this state with your mouth open, means that you're staying in this high stressed state for a long period of time. And when you do that and you remain in this state for long periods of time, our bodies are not designed for that. It's not how we were created. The stressed state was created for us. If you imagine, you go back thousands of years ago when you were running from that lion chasing you through the veldt and in the African bush. It was created in order to elevate you in that point for that instant speed, that instant reaction, so you can get all the stress hormones running to save you in that moment. But once that moment's over, your body's meant to relax. However, in our high stressed environment, society that we live in with our businesses and all the challenges as we've spoken, we remain in a stressed state for long periods of time. And that's when you start to have dis-ease. That's when now, have a look what happens when you're highly stressed and high strung. Your sleeping patterns destroyed. You struggle to sleep. You struggle for your mind to calm so that you can rest. You go to the doctor because you're feeling lightheaded, you're feeling difficult. They read your blood pressure and they give you a pill. They say, here, you need to take the pill to drop your blood pressure. But it's all as a result of consistently remaining in a stressed state. And when you're in a stressed state, you breathe through your mouth. So I've got a keynote talk called Shut Your Mouth to the Optimal to optimal well-being. Because just by practicing shutting your mouth, breathing through your nose, you breathe into your belly. You expand the diaphragm, which is a muscle that needs to work. When you breathe through your nose and you're breathing through your belly, it's natural. You'll straight away start to calm. It's the way that it is. Our noses were designed for breathing, not our mouths. Our mouth was created for eating. You don't eat through your nose, so why do you breathe through your mouth? And a yogi wrote that in a book in 1903 about the proper way, an effective way to breathe. So yes, it can be as simple as shutting your mouth. So give you an example. To become sort of consciously aware of this, when you're walking around the office or you're going from your car to your front door, is your mouth open? Shut your mouth. When you're walking from your car to the shop, when you're walking around the shop, be aware, is your mouth open? Shut your mouth. And the more that you're aware about it, when you're sitting at your desk, shut your mouth. Straight away, that'll actually start, as simple as it sounds, to change your state and to start reducing that stress. Because when you're breathing through your nose, a lot of amazing things happen inside your body that actually reduces those stress hormones. So yes, shut your mouth. So if ever I say to somebody, shut your mouth, I've actually got your best health interests at heart. How does that sound?
How amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Tim. So I've heard something, and so somebody told me that when you are in a state of stress for a very long time, your body almost gets addicted to that feeling of being stressed and the cortisol. So I wanted to ask you, like, how true is that, since you are the expert?
It's actually very true. And there's good stress and bad stress. Don't get me wrong. Stress in certain times and environments can elevate you to perform at your best. It really, really is essential. And you need those hormones, those stress hormones like cortisol. Okay? But after that, you need to be able to reduce yourself to drop. Because if you're remaining in that high stress state for long periods of time, that's when you start to get the negative side of stress. So a lot of people are addicted to that, what they believe they're addicted to the stress, but it's that high-paced, fast environment. And we all know everybody operates at different speeds, different levels, different ways. I operate for long periods of time in very high, not stressed environments, but fast-paced, where there's things happening fast around me and moving all the time. And I did this when I was running big events in hospitality, where you're on your feet for a long 10, 12 periods of time, hours of time, right? Which is that consistent, but it's not all stress. You can operate at high optimal pace. But if it's that stressed state, where your blood pressure is always up, your heartbeat's always up, you're always breathing from your chest, you start getting pains in your back and your neck, and you think, oh, I need to go for a massage, never going to help. That's stress. And that's where you need to be very aware of workplace burnout. And so one of the key things, and I've got a client that I'm talking with, is helping educate the managers, the leaders, to start identifying workplace burnout in their team. Because if you hit that point where you're at that consistent pace for so long that you're starting to hit burnout, that's when people can say, I feel depressed. I don't have the energy anymore. I feel more anxious. You get more angry where you weren't so angry before. Your brain doesn't operate optimally. So you're not able to think clearly and solve the problems. So yes, people can say, I'm addicted, I need that fast pace, but it's not always a stress state. If that person can calm at the end of the day and have a good 6-8 hours sleep, that's good, because they can take themselves down, if that makes sense. Yeah?
Yeah, that's amazing. And like it makes sense what you're saying. Because I know a lot of people who are like they can't sit still, but not because they have like ADHD or something. It's just they are so used to being in that state of being busy or like being stressed, that they just can't like sit still and just breathe.
Right.
And I mean, like burnout, if you hit burnout, it's not going to only affect you at work, it's also going to affect your family life. It's also going to affect your relationship with your spouse and with your children or your parents or whoever. So I think it's definitely something that all of us must try and invest in. But can you tell us a bit more about the research on the benefits of breath work for your mental health?
Sure. There's a lot. If you just have a look at what happens to our bodies when we start to breathe more effectively, here's just a little bit of science for you. When you breathe through your nose, you breathe into the bottom half of your lungs. So your lungs are effectively top, middle, and then the bottom. Now, when you breathe through your nose and you're breathing into the bottom half of your lungs, then you're actually increasing your oxygen intake 7 times more than if you're breathing through your mouth. So here's a misconception. People believe that breathing through your mouth, you get more air in. Take a deep breath, you go, but when you take a deep breath and you go, you're breathing into your upper half. Okay? Now, you may even get more air in, but what you're not doing is getting more oxygen into your bloodstream. And that's what you want. So that's one key thing. Now, here's something for the smokers. Doesn't apply for you, because when you smoke, what are you doing? You're breathing deep. And where do you take all of that lovely tar and everything? To the bottom of your lungs. So what you're doing is starting to block it in the optimal place for oxygen intake into the bloodstream. Here's another one for you, another bit of science for you, talking about this. When you're breathing in through your nose, you're creating what's called nasal nitric oxide. Now, nasal nitric oxide is an essential part of the absorption of oxygen into the blood. You're also improving on your nitrogen. Now, why is this such an important thing? Because without nitrogen, you can't absorb oxygen into your blood. So people believe nitrogen's the enemy. It's not. It's an essential part of breathing. So a lot of sports people are starting to understand and realize that they need to train and to operate best breathing through their nose, not their mouths. There's very new research, it's been around for a long time, but it's only now starting to really come into the fore that to train breathing through your nose means that you get more oxygen into the air into the bottom part of your lungs. Your blood is more oxygenated, which means that you get more oxygen going to your muscles. So that's also an essential part. So very quick story, a personal one for you. I decided to try this out when I first started to find out about it. I was actually training to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but I live in the Cape at sea level. So now how do you train for climbing high mountains where you've got a different altitude and a lot less oxygen, right? Well, what I learned was when I'm training, to train breathing through your nose. So you can then start to build up a resilience or a tolerance level to the nitrogen, right? To the carbon, sorry, not nitrogen, the CO2, the carbon dioxide, not nitrogen, CO2. You build up a tolerance to the CO2 so that when you're at higher levels, your CO2 is the enemy, not the lack of oxygen. It's too much CO2. So if you build up a resilience or a tolerance to CO2, so you operate better. So as I'm busy training for this, and I haven't got to Mount Kilimanjaro yet, but I decided to carry on with this practice in my running, as one of the goals this year was for me to run a marathon. Never run before. I started training in January, but I did all my training only breathing in and out my nose. I've now done multiple half marathons and one full marathon, only breathing through my nose. That's the power of not more air, more oxygen.
That's amazing. Sure. And when are you planning on actually climbing Mount Kilimanjaro?
On Kilimanjaro, and the game plan, the goal is it's just been shelved until next year. Busy doing a lot of other things this year. No, it's still there without question. And I will be breathing all the way. And I'll document it through my nose.
Amazing. So you mentioned one of the misconceptions that people have about breath work. Are there some other misconceptions that you want to clarify for us?
Yes, there's actually one very good one. You know, when you're a kid and you're playing around in the swimming pool and you all want to see who can hold their breath for longest underwater. Like we've all done that, right? And so you take a couple of big breaths, and you go under. Now, the point where you come up bursting for air, you think it's because of a lack of oxygen. Am I right? It's actually not. Your oxygen level of your blood always stays between 95 and 98%. Always. The only time that it actually changes is if you are a deep sea diver. That's the only time it changes. You see, when you believe that you're now run out of oxygen, it's actually a buildup of CO2, not a lack of oxygen. Because in the process of all the gaseous exchanges inside your body, when the oxygen transfers into the blood, CO2 is a byproduct. And so that's what builds up. That's why when you're training, you want to build up a resilience or a tolerance to CO2. And here's the thing, you can train your blood. Yeah. You can train your body, you can train your blood in order to get used to having a higher level of CO2 so that then you're not so breath hungry. How does that sound?
How do you do that? Tell us.
Breath work, breath practices. So where if you're doing, for example, a swimmer, who's somebody who plays a wind instrument or a singer, where you'll do deep breath practices where for 5 or 10 minutes a day, you'll be lying down, sort of like a meditation if you want as well, because it can be quite calming. And you'll do a lot of deep breaths in and out of your belly. And then you'll hold your breath on the out. So you let all your air out, you push all your air out, and then you hold your breath. And you'll hold that for longer periods. So you'd start with 30 seconds, and then you do another round of 3 or 4 minutes of deep breathing. And then you blow all out and you hold in for 1 minute. And then you do another session. And so you build over time the length of time you can hold your breath for without getting breath hungry. So that's just one way that you actually can build this up. And this is the way deep sea divers and divers actually perfect their ability to be able to go so deep, as you do different breathing exercises. Because you must also remember, our diaphragms, because we so often breathe from our chest, because we are mouth breathers, our diaphragm, which is a muscle, isn't being used optimally. And our lungs, which should be expanding belly, the lower lungs, the middle and the upper, the whole lung should be expanding. So you should be breathing optimally from your belly, your middle and your chest. That way your lungs operate fully. But we don't. Because here's the thing, we're not taught how to breathe. That's the reality. So
it is the reality.
It's been very interesting to see how my whole journey in breath work has gone. So I'm going to change the focus slightly here because I'm very aware of the time. And I'm going to lead into a little bit of a chat, which is what caught my attention, something called transformational breath work. You see, it's great to understand breathing, shut your mouth, breathe through your nose, breathing practices. There's a couple of them, and I'll share one with you just now, either to calm or to lift yourself that you can do in 60 seconds. Those are great. But it's similar to taking a painkiller for a migraine. You maybe help yourself in that moment, but it doesn't get down to the root cause of what is giving you that stress. What's keeping you in that stress state? Why do you react like this and snap when you didn't used to? Okay? Breathing can calm you, but what we got to get down is the root cause, which is in the subconscious mind. What is actually causing that? So if you can solve that deeper base, then your reaction in that stressed time becomes that much calmer, because you're not arriving already high-strung, high anxious, and highly stressed. Mm-hmm. That's where I studied transformational breath work, which means that we do a 45-minute deep, what's called holotropic breathing. It's just the style of breathing deep into the belly and deep into the chest. And for 45 minutes, you do this breathing with a combination of music and NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, to help reprogram the subconscious mind so that you can release your past stress, trauma, anxiety, which you've carried possibly from birth. And you carry this in our bodies as trapped energy, because your body, remember, your body has no memory. It stores experiences as energy. And if you give your body the right environment, it'll release that energy. And when you release that energy, you feel calmer. You feel quieter. That mind chatter calms down. And when you then come to stressful circumstances, you can handle it easier because you're arriving into it in a calmer state. It's sort of like that button. You know, somebody in your life always seems to push that button that sets you off, right?
Yes, we all know somebody like that.
So what you're going to do in a journey like that, in that deep breathing, is actually get rid of that button. Because if you don't have the button, when they say something, it doesn't impact you anymore. But it's just purely based on something that happened previously, that now when somebody says something that triggers you, you're just bringing that memory, that experience, that trauma that happened in the past back to now. And that's what sets you off. So if we drop that, release that, let it go, doesn't serve you, then you won't react.
Amazing. And it's so true. Like, it's so true. And I also just want to circle back to what you said about experiences being stored in the body as energy. I 100% agree with you there, because especially this time of year, there's a lot of people who, they don't say like, I am burnt out. What they will usually say is, sure, I'm having so many headaches these days, or I don't know why I'm so sick. I can't seem to get healthy. Like, nothing that I do works. I keep on getting sick. And like, when you actually think about it, a lot of those symptoms actually come from your mental health and from, like, not looking after your mental health. And I think that's something that a lot of people do not really think of when they are experiencing all of these emotions. They just think that it's like a physical ailment, but like, they never think, oh, but perhaps it is because I'm in such a stressful environment and I'm not doing anything to actually get rid of this stress. Super powerful.
Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah.
And I can relate exactly to that. I mentioned very briefly in my story, I walked out of my last high-paying corporate job in an absolute state. All I can describe it is my mind was fog. It was just like I was living in this permanent veil of fog. But I had no idea what to do about it. I actually went to the MD of the company that I was running and to reach out to him for help. I said, listen, I'm making mistakes. I'm not clear. I'm not able to sleep. I'm not able to function properly. I'm very worried, not only for myself, but that I'm also making mistakes in the business. He was not aware what I was talking about, and I didn't know, was workplace burnout. It was, my mental health was just not in a good state. But he wasn't aware. He wasn't cognizant of what I was talking about, and I didn't know. And that was the point where it actually didn't go well, because he thought I'm full of nonsense and whatever it was. And that left me to walking out in not very pleasant circumstances. As I've said, I was either going to die, kill somebody, or get divorced. And I wasn't happy with any of that. I was looking after me. And that's the big part of the problem, is when we're in that situation, us as individuals find it very hard to identify what we need to do, because we're living in it. And so you sort of take it on as part of life. I get, oh, it's sick. I just look forward to the weekend. It's Saturday. Oh, please, it's Saturday. And then, of course, on Saturday, the kids wake you up at 6 o'clock because they've got hockey, rugby, swimming, and you've got to run them around. And then you've got to drive them to the kids' party. And then there's friends coming around because it's rugby in the afternoon. So when do you actually relax? Sunday, you've got to mow the grass, you've got to clean the car, you've got to go shopping. And then on Sunday, you go, oh, thank goodness, I'm going to work on Monday. I can calm down because of... So you never do. And then, yes, you get sick. And there's a lot of people that I know who are struggling now. Oh, I've got flu. And I think that you had flu 2 weeks ago. I never recovered properly. Yeah.
Super
Difficult.
true. And thank you for sharing your story. Like I think it's nice when people are willing to share their experiences because it makes all of us know that we are not alone and that it's human to have these emotions and to go through all of this. But let's look at solutions. So would you mind just giving us like a demonstration of breath work?
Love it.
Like, what can you do when you are in a stressful situation or you just feel like you are super overwhelmed and you just need something to quickly get you back to normal?
That's brilliant. There's various different breathing techniques, and what I'll offer to everybody, and I'll send you the links, is access to these what I call breath hacks. So breath hack is a way that you can hack into your breathing state in literally 60 to 90 seconds. So I'll share that with you, and everybody will get access to various different ones: breathing for sleep, breathing for awakening, breathing to calm, breathing for stress release and anxiety release. So there's various different ones for different states. What I would encourage you then to do is pick maybe two of them that you like best and practice and get to know it before you need it. So in that circumstance, then you'll kick into a habit which you're busy creating and then say, breathe. In that circumstance, you're not going to remember to breathe unless you've put yourself there before. I hope that makes sense. Right?
It does make sense. It's like Einstein says, like a smart person solves a problem, but a wise person prevents the problem from happening in the first place.
That's it, exactly. So one of my favorite is called box breathing, but it's the most common one. So I'm going to leave that for you to experience in what I share. I'm actually going to do one called 3 big sighs and a yawn. How does that sound?
Relaxing. Let's do it.
Right, that's it. So this is a great one for people who are very anxious, very uptight. Perhaps you're about to do a talk or a presentation, and you're feeling that tense, and it all tense sits around here in your neck and your shoulders, right? You understand what I'm talking about there. So what we're going to be doing is, in this one, it's actually very, very simple. It's so simple, don't underestimate its power. So all that you're going to be doing, you need to be sitting in a chair, ideally with your feet flat on the floor. You need to be grounded and earthed. Your arms and hands can be wherever you want. I'm going to describe it to you, and then we're actually going to do it. Okay. How does that sound? Right. So all that you're going to be doing is taking a nice deep breath in through your nose. You're going to be expanding. So when you're breathing through your nose, you're making your diaphragm pull down. You're expanding your chest as well. So you really want to get a full breath in. And once a full breath in, you're going to then sigh. So the breathing in is full and forced, but the breathing out is natural, and you're just letting your breath just fall. You're then going to rest. You're going to pause and feel just your feeling. You're going to make sure that your belly is nice and soft. So you've just, and then you're going to breathe in again through the nose. And you're going to do that for 3 times. Then on the 4th one, you're going to take that beautiful deep breath in. You're going to fill everything up. And then when you let it out, you're going to let it out as a big yawn. You're going to fake a yawn. So you're really going to stretch your mouth out. How does that sound? Sound fun?
It sounds relaxing. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, so all you're going to be doing, feet flat on the ground, your arms on your lap or next to you, wherever you want. You can keep your eyes open for this, or sometimes it's nice to close them just so there's no distractions around you. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to breathe beautifully, deeply in through your nose, filling up your belly and making sure that your shoulders move back so you're expanding your chest. And so on 3, 2, 1, go. And let it out naturally, like a sigh, a nice big sigh. And just hold the breath out. You're not taking any breaths in. You just. And now you're going to breathe in through the nose. Nice big chest, and let it all out, and just let it out. You're not breathing in again. Let all the air out. And so you're holding your breath sort of. just before you get breath hungry. Not yet. You're not breathing yet. Breathe in through your nose. Nice and full. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe in. And let it out. Big sigh. Big sigh. That's it. Hold your breath out. You're not breathing in. Make sure your belly's nice and soft and you relax. Hold that out. Now this time you're going to take a beautiful deep breath in. In through your nose. And now when you let it out, lift your arms up and open your mouth and pretend you're yawning.
Oh, that's amazing. Like how relaxed you feel just by doing that. It's
And you can
amazing.
do that 2 or 3 times. And if you
That's
think that
amazing.
if you think you can't yawn at that point on your 4th one, and you start to pretend you open your mouth, you know how yawning's inferior. You go. You will, and just
You know what I like about this hack that you just shared? I know a lot of people can also resonate with this. I'm one of those people who struggle to do meditations or yoga or anything like that because I'm always like, what's the time? Like, is it over yet? Like, must I still continue? But this one is very nice because you know that you are going to do this for 4 times and you know exactly what to do. So it's not like completely timed, which is great.
that's it. It's beautiful. That's why I say pick. So I've got 6, which I've done explanations and also a video on, which everybody will get access to. It's all available on my website for free. These are the things which I believe that it's important that every business professional needs to know. So that's why I say go through them and pick the ones you like. So you like 3 big breaths and a yawn. Somebody else may like box breathing, which is what firefighters and armed forces use because they're in high stress states for so long. So box breathing is what they use. It's my favorite. It's a very well-known one, very common one. Maybe that one resonates with you. So then practice that and get used to that until you need it. And then that moment that you need it, you're then going to be able to, in literally 60 seconds, change your state. Get your mind, body, heart resonance, calm yourself, then watch how things come to you. You remember things simply, your conversation, you're naturally calmer just from that.
Great. So let's say somebody goes to your website, they love one of these hacks or like more than one of them, and they actually feel like they want to work with you one-on-one. How exactly can you help people to like on a bigger scale?
Great. I love that question. That is getting right down deep. Now we're starting to really hone in to not take that painkiller for the migraine. Now we're starting to say, right, let's get down into it. And that's the transformational breathwork journeys. So the best thing to do is then subscribe for 4 weeks, of which you do 1 journey a week, which are 90 minutes, which is 45, of which it's 45 minutes deep breathing, but it's a 90-minute session. I'll come to time in a moment. There's a misconception about time I'll share with you now. And when you do one of these a week for 4 weeks, you then start to break down these habits which don't serve you, these traumas and anxieties. I'll share my story very quickly the first time I did one. Or in fact, I've got a different story I'll share with you from a client. So you start to break that down, which means then you can start to function more optimally on an ongoing basis. And then the breath hacks aren't needed as much because now you're solving the cause of the migraine as opposed to just taking a Panado. So that's what I'd recommend. So my entire program incorporates personal development combined with breathing or stress release modalities. So I've got a full program as well, but here we're just going to focus on getting more consciously connected to your breathing, more breath aware, calmer, so you can sleep easier, you can wake up more refreshed. And as soon as you know what it's like when you have a good deep night's sleep and you wake up, how much more aware you are of the world versus your mind's going, you're panicking still, you're stressed about the meeting, you didn't finish all that paperwork, the cat was sick, the budgie's got to go to the vet, the kids are good. Right. You can't sleep. So you wake up. How? We want to get rid of that. And that's the transformational breathwork journeys. So I actually ran a session with Australia at 12 o'clock, because it was 8 p.m. that time. And the reason why I run it at 8 p.m. in the time you're at is everybody says, I don't have 90 minutes to do this. I don't have the time of the day to do anything. Now you're saying I need to lie down for 90 minutes and do a breathing exercise with you? Where do I find the time? So then I say, well, what do you normally do as you're settling after a long day before you go to bed? Do you read a book? Do you go onto Netflix? What do you do? Replace that period with this. So you can't find time. Nobody can find time. We're all busy. Lawyers are extremely busy. So what you need to do is find the time that you have and say, right, this breathing is my relaxed time. That's why I run them at 8 p.m. By that time, typically the kids are done, the dogs are fed, it's a little bit on a normal base. That's the time. Then brush your teeth, get ready for bed, put your headphones in, do the breathwork exercise, and then afterwards, all you do is you take your headphones out, you roll over and fall asleep. And you'll have the most peaceful sleep. You'll wake up the next day going, wow, what happened to me? So a breathwork journey, very, very quickly, is very unique to an individual. And it depends entirely on what your body needs to do in that moment. Because what you're doing is calming the mind. So you're going down from beta to alpha. Well, it's actually up. Beta to alpha to theta brainwave states. Now, theta, you're at twice a day, just before you go to sleep and when you first wake up. So what we do in this breathing, we get into theta brainwave state, which is the subconscious. So the conscious mind, which is that chit-chatter that we all have, goes to sleep. It's called transient hyperfrontality. What we're actually doing is starving that part of our brain with oxygen by breathing. Crazy. You breathe to starve your brain of oxygen. Yeah, it's weird. It's actually amazing. But in that state, your body isn't being blocked by your conscious mind. And now it'll start to heal. It'll start to release trauma anxieties. So the very first journey that I did, breathing journey that I did, which was one of the most profound experiences of my life. I'm a guy. Most guys deal with your trauma, deal with your stress. It's done. It's over. Suck it up. Get on with it. We're not allowed to deal with our emotions. Men don't cry, right? Sorry, that's bullshit. Excuse my language. It's absolute nonsense. It really is. And what I didn't know was I had this knot of tension, anxiety in my gut. It was just below my breastplate, just above my gut. But it had been there for so long, I wasn't aware it was there anymore. But that was trauma. That was anxiety that is stored as energy. And when I was doing this breathing, when the first time I did this, it felt like it was the size of a cricket ball in my gut. But being in the state and being open to the experience, my body released this, interestingly, through my hands. The energy dissipated out of my fingers. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. And it was at that point that I connected. Stress is the block for all of us in performing to our optimal point. That's why I went and studied breathwork.
Amazing. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and for being the very first male guest that I have.
I'm honored.
So can you tell us, where can people reach you? Where can they follow you? You
can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn doing posts every day. And then my website, where all my information, where there's some samples of journeys that you can experience as testimonials, and also all the breath hacks, is professionalpointer.com. I'm the professional pointer. I point you in a new direction to find purpose and meaning, stress-free. That's where it comes from. So professionalpointer.com is my website.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Justice in Heels podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with your friends on social media and tag us. As this podcast has a legal element, just a quick disclaimer that all views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the firms, companies, or brands that we are associated with. Until next time, goodbye.